guys, Mike for Sim Racing 604, and welcome to Assetto Corsa. I am going to be doing my own F1 preseason testing today. It's just about F1 season, and I'm sure I will be bringing lots of Formula 1 content to my channel, but I'm a little rusty on driving a Formula 1 car, so I figured I would test out 3 different Assetto Corsa mods at 3 different tracks and just kind of get used to the feeling of an F1 car again, because as I say, it's been a while. I haven't done a lot of F1 driving in the off season, so I want to get used to these ridiculously high output cars. And good chance for me to test 3 different mods head to head as well. So currently, you are on board the RB18 mod from MSF Modding. You may not have heard of this one before. This is probably the least known of the Assetto Corsa mods, but it was tested by a real F1 test driver, which is interesting. I don't know that any of the other mods can boast that, but MSF Modding does. So it's basically the same price as the other 2 mods. And yeah, they make 2 models. One is inspired by Ferrari, and the other one is inspired by the Red Bull. The Red Bull is their newest addition, so yeah, happy to try it out. So we're here at Silverstone just before sunset. So how does this MSF modding car drive? Well, it's a bit shaky, I have to say. Feels a bit tentative in the corners, surprisingly. But there's no doubting the speed. Turn-in seems nice. There's a hint of understeer. Let's see what happens in this corner here. So yeah, there was a shade of understeer, and then the back end tried to go out on me under hard acceleration there. But I did manage to get it down. Overall, very nice car. So what are my expectations? I figured I'd use this opportunity to talk a little bit about my expectations for the Formula 1 season as well. And what do I think for Red Bull? I think this is going to be their year again. I think they were so far ahead of the entire rest of the field last season that I can't imagine Ferrari or Mercedes, or frankly anyone else, catching them. I'm hoping for a closer season. I'm hoping the other teams can make the necessary improvements to bring things closer, but I'm not expecting any miracles and for Red Bull to truly fall off. I know they have the wind tunnel penalty of, what was it, 20% reduction in time, I think, for going over budget, but I think that will affect them. But I just can't see, you know, without a regulation change, without a major regulation change anyway, I can't see how the domination we saw last season with Max getting the most wins ever in a season, I just can't imagine how that is going to change. Max is going to be fast. Perez is going to be fast when Max is, you know, not a factor for some reason. So I just see this sort of repeating itself. And yeah, I just hope that the other teams can make it somewhat competitive this season. Because let's face it, that wasn't much of a season last year. But we'll see what happens. So yes, kind of settling into a groove with this car reasonably well. It is definitely understeery by default. That front end does want to plow through the sort of medium speed corners. And if you're wondering about that sound, if that sounds a little bit familiar, that is the work of AC Fan. You probably know his work from the Porsche 911 RSR or various F1 sounds that you may have added on to your Assetto Corsa install. Really the best sound modder in the game. And I consider him a friend, so I hope he is doing well. Shout out to AC Fan, aka SHR Modding. Alright, so we'll just do probably 5 laps here. I think I've got a decent feel for how this MSF Modding RB18 feels. And so what they did to get around copyright problems was they uploaded this car on the MSF website. It is for sale. And you can buy the car, and then they just so happen to have an Red Bull skin for their car, which is sold for free. So they're not technically selling any copyrighted materials for a profit. You get my point. So they found a clever way around it. But yeah, if you're a fan of Red Bull, I'd recommend trying this car. It's really cool. And again, the Ferrari as well. I don't know that there would be other skins, you know, to sort of flesh out a full field, so that's something to consider. But yeah, if you're a fan of either the Ferrari or the Red Bull, this could be a good option for you. And we'll get into the other two more, let's say, well-known mods for Assetto Corsa in just a moment. Woo! I was actually on a decent pace there, but then, yeah, the back end tried to kick out on me, managed to hold on to it, thankfully. And the pace is way off. But I'm just running default setup, and again, not trying to break any records, just trying to get a feel for driving F1. This is testing week, which means it's time to draw unreasonable assumptions about performance based on a few laps. This is usually where we say, wow, Ferrari looks quick this year. And then they get into the regular season, and other stuff happens. No, I'm kidding. But we do tend to draw unnecessary assumptions from preseason testing. But that's half the fun, isn't it? Being overly critical of livery designs, followed by being overly assumptuous based... Assumptuous? Is that a word? Assumptive? Whatever the word is, drawing too many conclusions from preseason testing is half the fun of F1 off-season, I think. The car handles that right-hander there that I just passed. I can't remember what corner number that is, but it's not as dialed in as the other cars. It could just be a setup issue, but I feel like I used to be able to take those faster in the other mods. But overall, I'm very happy with this. It's a nice sounding car, nice looking car, and again, you have the assurance that this was tested by a real-world F1 test driver. So that is a bonus. Alright, as we drive into the pits here, we can wrap things up. Let's go on to the Ferrari. Alright, here we are on board the Formula Hybrid 2022 with a 2023 Ferrari skin. Because why not? So what we have here is what I would consider almost an essential mod for Assetto Corsa. Formula Hybrids have been coming out since 2017 annually, and have done their best. Racing Studio has done their best to capture everything that makes a compliant Formula 1 car into a mod. It's not based on any actual car, it's just based on the Formula 1 regulations, and they do such an amazing job year in, year out of delivering such a car. And it's, like I say, it's almost become essential. It's like a part of Assetto Corsa now. And 2022 was no different. The level of detail was incredible. This was the first year they had any sort of high-profile competition in the F1 modding market for Assetto Corsa. And we'll get to that option right after this video, right after this section, rather. But anyway, we are here at Mugello to test out this Ferrari. One of my favorite tracks in all the world. I love Mugello. Tests your car from every conceivable facet. And we'll see what happens here with this Hybrid 2022. So right away, feels more grippy than the MSF. You could feel those tires loading up to a greater degree. I would say, you know, it's hard to say which is the sort of more accurate, because most of us will never drive a Formula 1 car. And by most of us, I mean all but a few hundred people who have ever lived have driven a Formula 1 car. But I would say, based on performance, you know, the MSF feels a bit shaky. This one you could potentially argue feels too grippy. How difficult it actually is, we don't know. But if you're looking for sort of a high-level summary of what differentiates these two in terms of how they drive, I would say the 2022, the Formula Hybrid 2022, feels sticky, whereas the MSF RB18 feels a little looser. So, thoughts on Ferrari for 2023? Well, I mean, I wish them all the best. Do I think they can top Red Bull? Possibly on pace. On consistency, I just don't know. So we'll see what happens. I'm not optimistic that they can beat Red Bull. I am optimistic that they can beat Mercedes. Mercedes had such a rough year last year, and I don't know that they will be able to bounce back right away. Obviously, so many years of domination, maybe they were due to sit down and take a back seat, as it were, for a couple years at least, and we're seeing some signs of porpoising already in the preseason. So, looks like they have not solved one of their main issues, but we'll see what happens. I think their porpoising got better toward the end of 2022, so maybe that's something they can rectify in either preseason or early season runs. And yeah, what a great car. I forgot how much I love the Formula Hybrid 2022. Very, very fast. Very, very solid, sturdy. Oh, this is the S, by the way. I should mention that this is the S model. There's two Formula Hybrids when you buy it. The standard and the S. And yeah, it's just so grippy. And what a track. I love this track so much. But yeah, I think Ferrari will have the pace. I really believe in Leclerc and Sainz. I think that's a fantastic driver pairing. And it seems like there's no friction among them, which is really impressive considering both are trying to still sort of establish their name and establish their role in F1. Sainz, of course. Actually, they're both veterans at this point. I forget how old I am sometimes. But anyway, I was just going to say that neither of them has, sort of solidified their place in F1 history. So they're both, I'm sure, trying to battle that. But it doesn't seem to be coming forth in terms of friction between the drivers. So that's reassuring. And Ferrari, of course, has a new team boss this year. So yeah, good things could be ahead for them. I just think Red Bull was so far ahead last season that it's going to take the other teams a while to catch up. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, Red Bull, it's just their time. You could say that, let's say 2020 Mercedes, it's like, well, then again, I was just about to disprove my own point. I was going to say Mercedes was so far ahead in 2020 that it's like, what could teams do? But then we saw what happened in 2021. So who knows? Who knows? Time will tell, but again, I wish Ferrari all the best. Be nice to see them inch toward their sort of former glory from as recently as, 2007? Kimi Räikkönen. Alright, so wrapping up here with the Hybrid 2022. Impressive as always. And now the final car. So, we are here in Germany. It's a German brand. Whoa. On board the Formula Alpha 2022. This one by Virtual Racing Cars, formerly known as VRC Modding Team. So the Formula Alpha came as a surprise to just about everyone in the Assetto Corsa modding scene. Reason being is nobody thought anyone would challenge RaceSim Studio and their sort of, I wouldn't say hold, but their dominance in the current year F1 modding scene for Assetto Corsa. We've had Formula Hybrids since 2017, and each year was a little bit better than the last, give or take. And yeah, nobody was to challenge that, but then Virtual Racing Cars said, you know what? We're talented, we're organized, we know our stuff. Let's take a shot at making a current year F1 car. So I believe they were even first to market in 2022, beating RaceSim Studio to the punch and releasing the Formula Alpha in May of 2022. And the car is fantastic. It's more shaky under braking than any of the other cars I've tested today. But other than that, it feels phenomenal. What a car. Sounds amazing. Actually, these are modded sounds, but the default sounds even are incredible. And yeah, it's just a great car. The level of detail, including some, harder to spot details, such as the porpoising under certain conditions, the selectable wings, and what else was there? Foot animations in the wheel well, if you can get a replay camera in there. I mean, just huge details on this Formula Alpha. And to be fair, RaceSim Studio followed suit and put a new sort of personal best in as far as mod details into the Hybrid 2022. But generally speaking, Virtual Racing Cars just hit this out of the park, both in terms of detail and drivability. As I say, it gets shaky under braking, but overall it's a very nice car. Now, is it too shaky under braking? In my opinion, yes. I can't stomp on the brake the way I would want, because you see how late real F1 drivers brake. We have that, sort of high-level telemetry to know when the driver hits the brakes. Now, we don't know how much they're hitting the brakes, but yeah, they tend to start braking very, very late. And I can't seem to replicate that here with this Formula Hybrid, so it could be me. Whoops, lost my DRS there. Missed my DRS, I should say. Talking too much, couldn't hear the beat. Woo! But yeah, overall, just a brilliant car. It's so good. If you want to know a little bit more about what goes into a car like this, be sure to check out my podcast, which is called Simply Talking. I'm 3 episodes in, and just probably right after I get done recording this video, I am going to upload the 4th episode, which is an interview with a gentleman by the name of Lucas. And Lucas gave us an insight into the world of modding. Lucas is responsible for a number of things, not least the social media and some sounds for Virtual Racing Cars. And I got to sit down with him and sort of get a glimpse behind the curtain of modding, and it was a fantastic talk. So yeah, on most major platforms now you can find Simply Talking with 604, so search that out. Give a subscribe if you'd like. I'll have lots more interviews coming. So, got this lap plus roughly 2 more laps, then we'll wrap up the video. So, the big question on my mind, and probably yours as well, is what is going to happen with Mercedes in 2023? Comparatively disappointing year for them in 2022, just the one win. I guess that was Brazil, George Russell. Lewis coming in second. So, yeah, will we see a repeat of that, just a single win, or will we see, you know, more Mercedes wins, less Mercedes wins? I'm inclined to say that they do get some wins. I'm hoping they can kind of narrow the gap a little bit to Red Bull, but I'm also thinking that Ferrari will probably finish ahead of them. So I'm gonna say they'll get some wins. I haven't been. It's preseason. We're making presumptions, but we have assumptions. Why do I keep messing that word up? We have seen some porpoising with the W14, and that's definitely not a good sign. So I'm gonna say Red Bull at the end of 2023 will be your constructors champion. Max will be your drivers champion. I'm gonna say Ferrari finishes second, and I'm gonna say Mercedes gets 2 wins, 3 wins. If they get 3, I'm going to say George gets 2, Lewis gets 1. And if they get 2, I'm going to say it goes 1 and 1. And they'll be third in the Drivers' Championship. We'll see what happens. Now that the brakes are warm, by the way, you're probably noticing me brake way too early. So maybe I was just not giving it enough time to warm up in this Formula Alpha. Try and brake a little bit later on this final lap here. By the way, other than Mugello, is there a better F1 test track than this? That infield section, which I don't love, this that I'm going through, of course, but at the same time, I mean, it's a great test of the mechanical grip of the car. We have corners like this. Whoa, where you saw that front lock there, and we shoot down the hill and set up for a hairpin. I mean, it's a great test track. There we go. I was able to brake a little bit later, so what do you know? Just need to get it warmed up. Another impressive feature of the Formula Alpha. So if anyone came here looking for a verdict on which is the best mod, it's really going to depend what you're going for. I mean, the MSF has the advantage of being tested by a real-world F1 test driver. Hybrid 22 is phenomenal. Formula Alpha 22 is phenomenal. I would say the Alpha probably cuts the difference in terms of difficulty of driving. Hybrid tends to be on the easier end of the scale. MSF tends to be on the harder. The Formula Alpha seems to kind of cut the difference. It's a little more shaky under braking, but overall still brilliant. And yeah, you're good with any of them, frankly. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the 2023 Formula 1 season in the comments below. Thanks for watching.